Welcome to Elevate and Thrive, Breaking Barriers for an Empowered Life. I'm your host, Jen Smith, and I am so excited to be on this journey with you. In this podcast, we are going to dive deep into the transformative stories of individuals who have faced adversity head on, emerged stronger, wiser, and more empowered. I'm here to share those stories with you, to remind you that no matter how dark the night may seem, there is always light at the end of the tunnel, and there is a sunrise waiting to greet you. To inspire you to break through your own barriers, rewrite your own story, and to step into the light of your true potential. So what can you expect from Elevate and Thrive? Each week, I am going to bring you stories of triumph, resilience, and empowerment. We're going to explore the depths of the human spirit, spirituality, uncovering the courage and the strength that lies in each and every one of us. But more than that, we're going to provide you with practical tools, actionable insights, and a community of like-minded individuals who are also on this journey alongside you. So whether you're facing your own challenges or simply seeking inspiration to elevate your life, know that you have come to the right place. Together, we are going to break barriers, defy expectations, and soar to new heights. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey. I cannot wait to see where it takes us. Remember, you are worthy, you are enough, and your journey to an empowered life starts now. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being on this episode of Elevate and Thrive, Breaking Barriers for an Empowered Life. I'm Jen Smith, I'm your host, and today we have a very special guest with us. Her name is Danielle Crouch, and really has a diverse background of different things that she's been through. And so I'm super excited to have her on the podcast today. She is here to share her story with us and her observations and a little bit of what she's been through, her heartaches, some of the rebounds, and some of the things that she's learned as she's gotten older. So thank you so much for being here, Danielle. I really appreciate you being here. How are you doing today?
I'm good. Thank you, Jen.
So tell me a little bit. I know that you've been through a lot. I can definitely relate to being a single parent and, just learning a lot as we get older. But tell me a little bit about, if you could, some of those experiences, and if you could take us back to a really pivotal moment in your life where you had a realization and some insights about things that you've gone through, and maybe take us back to the beginning of that.
Sure. Well, I am divorced. I've been divorced, I think, about 10 years now. It's not something that I count down, but thankfully over time, my son's dad and I have been able to be on the same page for the most part. That was a long struggle. Divorce is ugly, and I hated that had to happen. It did. And, but thankfully, we're hopefully better adults now than we were back then, but it was tough. And, I live in Southwest Kansas, and most of my life has been around horses in different aspects. And so in my married life, it was rodeo and raising horses and training horses and cattle. That was all that we did. And so jumping forward to when we did get a divorce, then as a single mom, I fortunately did have a full-time job, but probably like most people, I don't know anybody that has enough money. And rodeo is just like any other sport that, our kids want to do. It's extremely expensive. So trying to just pay the bills, to take my son to, the rodeos that he wanted to compete in every weekend was tough. And I had a really hard time. People talk about work-life balance. I don't know what that is, because everything is work. I would go to my day job and then come home and still have work to do. You have horses to ride, a lawn to take care of, a house to keep up. I mean, just life. And so it was tough. And my job didn't really allow me the option of going and getting a second job. I was the boss, and that meant staying responsible for everything. And so I found myself working 60 to 80 hours a week and missing out on a lot. I was able to, take my son to the rodeos. But then I always felt like something wasn't getting done at work, or I was on the phone a lot. When I was away with my son, I was on the phone with work and dealing with whatever fires were going on there. I've always had a belief in God and faith in my life, but I really didn't have a direct relationship. I really didn't know much about that. So about 5 or 6 years ago, no, actually it was more than that, I started going to church with a friend of mine. And I really liked the pastor. I really liked learning about the Bible and everything. And I don't want to make this about religion or anything, but I would just sit in church and just cry, because whatever he was saying was just speaking to me. I found myself just, wanting something different. I hated telling my son, we can't do this, or I can't go, especially as he got older. He a grown up now, he's 24, but when he went to college, he went to college on a rodeo scholarship. And it was, he was several states away. And I found myself saying I couldn't go because I had to work, or I couldn't go because I didn't have the money. And I just felt like I was missing out. But I just felt like I just was never going to be able to do the things that I wanted to do. Several years ago, I had, and I don't even want to say it was a health scare, because when I'd found out that I was going to have surgery on a breast to have a lump removed, I was 0% worried, because I just knew there was nothing wrong. Yep, we're going to take this out. It's not a big deal. It doesn't mean anything, because I had been praying so hard for God to show me what to do. I mean, if anybody's ever had that happen, I assume this is the same everywhere. They bring in like a cancer counselor after they tell you, you're going to have surgery. And I'm like, okay, like next week, is this now? I'm ready to get this over with. Let's go. And she just was so like, are you sure you're okay? And I'm like, I'm fine. I know that I'm fine, because I knew that was God telling me, you had better make some changes, because the next time, if this happens again, it's not going to be just this little, oh, hey, here's me talking to you. And that was really the thing that flipped the switch for me. I guess that was the circumstance that happened that I said, now is the time. So I had my surgery, and of course, everything was fine, not a big deal. And I started laying the foundation of thinking about me. What is it that I want? And I did some pretty big things. This may be not for everybody. And this was definitely not for me until it was the right time for me. So I thought about selling my house, because I thought, if I don't have this house payment, if I don't have all this grass to mow, if I don't have all these things, then I'll have money. I couldn't sell it. Thought, I don't think I can give this place away. But then when it happened fast. And so I sold my house, and I bought a camper, and I lived in a camper. I mean, when I say I sold my house, I got rid of everything. This was really hard to do, because I like things, you have beautiful things behind you, and I have beautiful things, but it's really hard to get rid of stuff. And I did it in a process of just going through closets and going through boxes and throwing away. And how much better that made me feel just in itself was amazing, because I didn't realize how bound and tied to stuff that I was. I didn't realize it until I started getting rid of it. About everything I owned went into a storage container, and I bought a camper, and I lived in a camper, and I loved it. I loved that my time was then mine. I could do whatever I wanted to do when I came home from work. I had also started realizing that a lot of the things that really mattered to me at my job, it didn't matter. If I wasn't in that position, or a year from then, or 10 years from then, it really didn't matter. And early in my career, it mattered a lot to me. Then I ended up quitting my job. So I sold my house in April of 2022. In August of 2022, I quit my job. And I was in that position for 10 years. And it was the best thing that I had done. I was done there. I wasn't happy. I was done building something for somebody else and not really feeling like I was making a difference. I lived pretty small for a while, and thankfully, right now I'm in my boyfriend's spare bedroom. But I think the point of all that I went through is I had to reach a certain place in my life before any of that was going to happen. And it wasn't going to happen a second sooner than when it was time for it to happen. And when it did happen, I really couldn't believe how everything fell into place. And my really good friend here, she would kept calling me and she's like, "Are you sure you're okay? You're closing on your house in a couple weeks and you don't know where," and I didn't know where I was living. And it didn't bother me because I knew it would work out. And that mindset was a complete 180 from anything that I had ever been like. And I can't say that I never had any worry about it, but I knew it was going to work out. And it did. And literally like within a day, I bought a camper and the next day I found where I was going to park it. But I just realized that if I don't make the changes in my life, nothing is going to change. My little health issue, that was the catalyst that said, you better start doing something now, or else there's going to come a time when it's not going to be an option. And I didn't want to be 60 years old and still working in a job that I didn't care for and that just didn't bring me any joy and quite honestly barely paid the bills. I didn't want to be that person. So I said, I'm making a change. I'm not going to be that person anymore. And it's not that easy. There was a lot of soul searching. There was a lot of tears, a lot of, oh my God, what did I do? It'll work out. It'll be fine. And it is. And when you let go of not just things, but when you just let go, the things that are supposed to happen start happening. I still have the struggles. I still, think, okay, so what is next? I don't know what's next. And that doesn't necessarily scare me like it did before when I felt like I just had to have everything under my thumb and everything under control and planned out and mapped out, plan A, B, C, and D, and then just in case E, F, and G, I don't do that. I just wake up and deal with the day that's right there and make the plans that I want to make and take control over the life that I have. Interestingly enough, not interesting, I guess, but sadly, I got news late last night that a friend of ours from high school had passed away unexpectedly. We knew it was coming with her because she had been sick, but nobody really thought that it was going to happen as suddenly as it did. Yesterday, I had made a post on my Facebook about one of my between the ears about, I didn't want to ride my horses. I didn't want to exercise them. It's hot here. It's really hot here. And it isn't about motivation, because if you wait for motivation to come and smack you in the face, you're going to keep waiting. It's about dedication. And I thought last night, I'm not going to gripe about getting up early and riding before it gets hot, because I know a couple people right now that would give anything for, her mom and their friend to be right there, to be able to do, have just a little bit more time. And we're only here for a little bit. And there's a lot of things that I think everybody wants to do. It's just figuring out how to go about that and get the things that we want out of life.
It's so interesting because before we started recording, we were talking about how important it is to share our experiences and to talk about our stories, because so many people go through similar things and we might not realize it. And as you're sharing your story, I don't know if you know this or if you listen to my story, but I actually currently live in an RV. I went through a very similar thing where I sold all of my stuff, had all these realizations, and I can really relate to a lot of things that you're saying in when you let go of how you think things should be, having a plan, because I can also really relate to that. I was definitely very rigid in my planning. Like I always had, just like what you said, I always had to have like the plan A through, I don't know, E, G, right?
Exactly.
And so for me, that's been a journey as well. And I also really want to acknowledge what you said too about sometimes it's not easy. I heard a lot of it had to do with your mindset, it sounds like. And there are times when we're on this journey of creating change, creating the life that we want to create, realizing that we need to make some changes where it's not easy to let go of what we had in the past or the mindset that we had or how we thought things should be. How did you get through that in those moments that were really challenging for you throughout this process?
It is tough because we do have our own thought of how things should be or how we want them to be. I go back to my faith and just everything that I've learned so far, and I'm and still learning. I feel like I've lived multiple lives up to this point, and I feel like I still have a couple more left in me. Through each of those chapters and lives that I've had, there's been more than one occasion where the only way I got out was because somebody else intervened. The post that you made this morning about intuition, I was thinking about that earlier. I was like, female intuition is not something to be messed with. But I wondered, is it intuition or is that God speaking to us? I don't know what the answer is to that. But I have learned over the years to trust my gut, and the little spidey sense that comes on the back of the neck. It has kept me out of some situations on more than one occasion. I had doubts, and I had a lot of doubts. It was a hard process, especially in the beginning when it didn't go well. In my mind, I thought, okay, the hard part is making up my mind that I'm going to sell my house. And then I did that. And then I went gung ho, and then it didn't sell. And then I was like, what the heck? Why isn't this working? I have decided this is what's going to happen. Why is it not happening? And so in those moments is when I would question, what are you doing? Are you supposed to be doing this? Is this, I really doubted because it wasn't happening when I thought it should. I was. And I think probably we all are. We get so attached to things. And I really wasn't attached to my house, but I was attached to the other things. I had a great barn for my horses. I had, all of this really nice facility, and I didn't want to let go of that. And then I really just had to be honest with myself and remind myself it's a building. You can build one somewhere else. It's what is the deal? Why are you getting hung up on a building? But there were definitely times I was sitting on my living room floor going through boxes that I hadn't opened for who knows how many years, wondering, why did I keep this stuff, for so long, and just throwing away just boxes after boxes. And then a little bit later thinking I probably should go look through them, and then being in my dumpster looking through boxes, thinking I probably need to keep that, important tax papers I should probably keep. But it really was a mindset. Ultimately, when I really doubted myself, I had to think about and remind myself, why was I doing what I was doing? And it was because I was tired of saying, I can't do this. I can't go there. And doing those things were way more important to me than having stuff that just sucked my time, energy, and money.
Yeah. And I love what you said about in those moments where you're in that waiting mode. Those are the moments, and I can relate to that as well, where the doubt creeps in because it's like, I've made the decision, I'm doing the thing, and you're strong in that. But then it's like when things don't go as quickly as you want them to, maybe things go in ways that you just they're hard or they don't go according to plan, that's when the doubt kicks in.
And it always does.
It always does. And so in those moments of doubt, for me, what has helped me is coming back to that place of, you said it too, is like reminding yourself of the why.
Yeah.
Why did I make this decision in the first place? And then also reminding myself, okay, I have agreed to let go. And so if I have to let go, and that's part of this process, then I also need to accept the fact that I need to let go of the timing that I think things should work out. And then I need to embrace trusting, and I need to embrace that faith, like you talked about, that everything is going to be okay. And so absolutely, it does happen in the divine timing. And one of the things that I've learned throughout my process is that oftentimes in those moments of doubt, in that in between time of what you want and where you're trying to go, those are the moments of the biggest growth. Oftentimes it's in an inner struggle, and that also is a choice. What do I do with that? Do I choose to let that inner struggle get the best of me? Or do I choose to hold on to that faith and just keep trusting and just keep moving forward and putting one foot in front of the other? And I think that that's the hardest part of all of it.
Yeah. And I just think we are our own worst enemy. And we are the first ones that hold us back from things, and we should be the last, but we're the first ones to say, you're probably not qualified to apply for that job, or you're probably not good enough to go do this, or you don't fit in here, whatever. And I don't know why we do that. I think we all do that. And I know I do it, and I still do it. I thought I had a lot of self-confidence. I'm used to being in front of a crowd full of people, and I'm used to making, very important decisions, and I'm used to doing a lot of things, but that wasn't the confidence that, I was confident in that way, but I wasn't confident in myself to say to myself, it doesn't matter. It really is not our business what someone else thinks of us. I had a lot of hurt feelings, and I had a lot of resentment that went along with my job that was nobody's fault but mine. I can't control what other people do or say. And I didn't think that I took it personal, but I did. And I'm not one that gets offended easy, but I always felt like everything was a fight. It was me against everybody else. And that will really weigh you down. When I started to let go of that and realize I really don't care, and I say that kind of with an asterisk, because I think as humans, no matter how much we want to believe that we don't care, we still maybe do a little bit, because even if we don't care that not everybody wants to be our friend or whatever, there's still a portion of us that we don't want to think that somebody doesn't like us for whatever reason, because that kind of feels like it's something negative about us. If you can let go of some of that and just focus on what you're doing. Because I was like, I didn't tell anybody that I was buying a camper. I didn't tell anybody, that I was leaving my job until I gave my notice. And even then, it was really hard for me to reach out to people and say, hey, of any place I can park my camper, here in a couple of weeks, because I didn't want anybody to know, because I didn't want the questions, and I didn't want the judgment, and I didn't, want all of that. But then I just reminded myself, they're not paying my bills. They're not responsible for what I'm doing. And once I hit that, so many people were like, I wish I could do what you're doing. I can't believe you're doing it. This is great. I would never be brave enough. I would never be able to. And I'm like, well, I thought the same thing 2 years before I did it. But once you do it, it's like, not a big deal. And it's probably not for everybody. I don't know. But I think what is for everybody, and what I would encourage all your listeners to do, is pick a closet, a junk drawer, kitchen cabinet, something, and just start going through it. And if something's in the way back and covered in dust that you don't even remember that you had, just get rid of it. Because once you start that process, like, you can just almost feel the weight coming off of you. Why are you keeping stuff around that you don't even use? Right now, I don't have my own home, but I know that one day when I do, it's going to be pretty small, because I've learned with living in a camper, like, you need 1 or 2 pans, a couple of kitchen utensils. It's amazing what you can do with not very much stuff. Just to have that freedom of not feeling like you have to do something in order to survive. I have to do the things that I want to do, that obviously pay my bills and stuff like that. But I now get the opportunity to pick and choose what those are.
I totally agree. You said it a couple times when you were just speaking. It's in that letting go that you get the freedom from the stuff. I put a lot of stuff in storage, and then I came back to it later and I'm like, why
Yeah.
did I,
Why?
why did I do this? This is silly. And
Yeah.
so I had that same experience, and I was just like, all of these things, they really don't matter. For whatever reason, when I was in that moment, I was like, oh, I got to hold on to that.
Mm.
And there's an energy attached to it. And there's also a belief around things. It's like if you let it go, well, maybe you can't have it again. And so there's that part of it as well. But what I found, and it sounds very similar to what you were just saying, is that when I let those things go, when I let go of the beliefs, when I let go of the expectations, when I let go of the planning and not that I don't plan, because I still like
Oh,
to have
right.
a plan. It makes me feel good to
Yes. Yeah. We need a plan.
organize and have a plan.
Yeah.
So not that I don't do that, but to be so rigid about it, and
Yeah.
to let that go and just be open to possibility and be open to God, the universe, source, whatever word we want to use has in store for us, to be open to the possibility. That's that freedom. And
Yeah.
you're right. I think that we have been raised in this society where the more you have, the more successful you are, or we always need that next thing, or that bigger house, or the better car, or the better job, or the more money, or whatever. And what living small in this RV has taught me is, just like you said, how little I actually need
Yeah.
to be happy, to survive. And also too, when you get rid of that stuff, there's something really freeing about it.
For me, with going through this process, I'm still learning a lot about myself, but I think more important, I'm learning more about people than what I was able to before, because holding on to things that gives us control. Sometimes in our life, you get wrapped up in family and kids and activities and job and friends and just all the things. We don't really feel like we have any control. Our day is belonging to somebody else. And so when we do hold on to things, we hold on to things really, really tightly because that's what we can control. And it's scary to let go of that control and just be like, oh, I'm just going to see what happens. And that's a little bit of how my life is. But when I look at other people and I see the struggles that they're going through or how they behave and things, I see them different, because I feel like the ones that are struggling the most are the ones that probably feel like they don't have any control in their life because they overdo and they overcompensate on the couple things that they do feel like maybe they have a little control over, whether it's their job or their kids' activities or relationship with the spouse, because they feel so out of control everywhere else. And so I think my journey has definitely taught me a lot about me, but it's also opened my eyes in how I view other people and how I respond to them. And I'm way, way different. I'm a way different person. I'm much more relaxed because I don't sweat the small stuff because it really doesn't matter. And the doubt does creep in and it comes back and you start thinking, okay, should I sweat that small thing? That's human nature. And I think if you do keep sight, people keep vision boards and stuff. I've never been that organized or creative, and that just isn't how my brain works. But what I keep focused on is my big picture, is where I'm at right now, what I'm doing right now, what I'm going to be doing a year from now. I have no idea. But what I do know is I have every possibility open to me because I made the changes that I needed to make to be able to have those opportunities. And you can't just sit around and wait for them to sit in your lap, because most times they don't. Definitely letting go is scary because we don't want to do that. We all want some control over something. But by letting go, I feel like now I actually have a say in my life and what's going to happen
Isn't it
for
a
the
little,
most part.
isn't it a little ironic that letting go actually gives you more control? Because as you were talking about that, I was thinking that I think a lot of people, and myself included in the past, thought that if I could control the circumstances, then that in some way equals a sense of safety.
Oh, yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's really what it comes down to, is we want to feel safe. We want to feel secure. And so letting go of that control, or like in the horse world is like letting go of the reins,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Like that's like, oh
Yep.
God, the horse is going to take off
Yeah.
and I don't have any control now.
Yeah.
But in reality, when we let go, going with the horse analogy, is there's other ways that the horse knows what you need, right? Like there's body cues and there's the direction that you're looking. You don't necessarily need to be holding so tight to those reins and so holding so tight to the control. When you let go, it really does, in a ironic way, equal more control,
It
because
does. Yeah.
just
And
going
you would,
flow and
yeah, you would
trust it.
think it was the opposite, but it really is. Because I'm not trying to control everything and direct all the different lanes of traffic. I'm free now to react to whatever gets in my path. And I definitely react to it a lot different.
And I also think that helps deepen that connection too. Touched a little bit on the intuition or God speaking to us, is like, to me, when you let go of that control, that just opens up that channel. And then
Yes.
along with that comes clarity. As you continue on your journey, is there anything that you would like to offer to the listeners? If just some words of advice or some things that might be helpful for somebody that maybe they're navigating their own change right now or evolving in their own way and they're really struggling with letting go of that control. Can
Yeah.
you offer any words of wisdom to people that might be listening?
I would say to be honest with yourself. Your husband or your spouse, your partner, probably not going to be fully honest with you. Your friends, if you don't have that friend when you're trying on jeans is looking at you going, no, go take those off. That's that's a great honest person to have in your life. But while I feel like we are our own worst enemy because we will lie to ourselves over and over and over again, we are also our best advocate. But we really have to be honest with ourselves. And that's really hard to do. I think that's probably the hardest thing to do because we don't want to see the ugly. We don't want to acknowledge the ugly and the things that we should probably work on, but we'll do it later. If you can practice that and get better about being honest with yourself, but then also following through and doing the work to improve that, I think that's the best thing because nobody is going to lie to us more than we are, but also nobody's going to be more honest with us than ourselves. And it can be super ugly and very hard. But when you can really look at yourself and say, I don't like this behavior. I don't like whatever, and then take the steps to make those changes. That is probably the best piece of advice that I can offer. And then if you can look at yourself in the mirror and say, I really don't like the way you're handling this situation. I really don't like the way you are right now. And if you don't like the answer, that's probably the one thing that you need to start with. When you can do that, then I feel like everything else just kind of falls into place because what you care about, what you want to work at, how you see your surroundings, all of that changes and you can become more intentional about the life that you want to live. I don't sweat a lot of things. I'm very intentional. If I don't want to go sit in a room of people that I don't necessarily care for, there's nothing wrong with that. I have better things that I would rather do with my time. If I see that I've behaved poorly in a situation, I need to change that. Just be honest with yourself. It's ugly and it's hard and we don't really want to listen all the time, but we need to because we know.
Yeah. Yeah. And it makes us better people for it.
Yes.
I
Yes.
like it's in those moments of listening to the things that are maybe hard to realize about ourselves or that those uncomfortable truths that are
Yeah.
present.
Yeah.
Those are the moments when you have that awareness and you choose to do it differently,
Mhm.
that your entire life changes. And
Yeah.
for me, it's like finding that happiness again.
Yeah.
Because the more that we push that aside, ignore it, don't deal with those things because it's uncomfortable, the
Mhm.
longer we stay unhappy. Maybe things aren't horrible, but they could certainly be a lot better. Or sometimes they're horrible and we stay
Oh
there
yeah.
too,
Yeah.
right? Right.
Right.
So
Right.
there's something that you could say that you would like to leave as your legacy or maybe even something that is really important for you to share with other people, what would that be?
Don't be afraid to change. Don't be afraid to try. I listen to a lot of podcasts and people I hear a question a lot, do you have any regrets about this? Or what do you regret most about your past or whatever? And whenever I hear that, I always think, well, what's my answer? If somebody asks me and I don't have any regrets. Now, there are some things that I probably could have done different or whatever, but I don't have any regrets about decisions that I've made. What I will say on regret is sometimes I have a little bit of regret on decisions that I wasn't brave enough to make. And so try the things. Change is scary, but start small if you need to, but do it, because I've never looked back and thought, oh, I regret doing that. But I have looked back and thought, I I wish that I would have gone ahead and taken this opportunity or done that. You do something and you don't like it, do something else. It really can be that simple. Making change can be that simple. The emotional baggage that comes with making change is the stuff that slows you down and makes it hard to make those decisions. Actually, doing a change is simple. So that is what I think I would like people to remember, if anything, is just don't be afraid of change. Scary as hell, but that's your own baggage that's making it scary. It's just like cutting your hair, but it'll grow back, it'll be fine. So just don't be afraid to try, because if you don't try, how are you ever going to know?
I love it. That's beautiful, and I could not agree more. Thank you so much, Danielle. Where can people find you? I know that you talked a little bit about behind the ears.
Mhm.
Where can people find you if they want to connect with you? And are you working on anything right now that you'd like people to know about?
Sure. Well, I am an open book, and so you have to be very careful what you ask, because I will tell. Um, Basically, it's just my Facebook page, and I gave you that link, and you can probably add it to the show notes. I'm pretty sure it's my name, but my Facebook is public. I put my thoughts and musings on there in several different ways, and it doesn't necessarily have to apply for horses, even though most of the time these thoughts come to me when I'm on the back of one. And so that's where Between the Ears came from. And so you can search my page on that. But I am actually working on, I guess it's probably a book. It really hasn't shaped into what it is yet. But with several of the experiences and encounters that I've had in my life, everybody's always said, you really should write a book, because this is not really normal what happens to everybody. And so I'm trying to find those words, and like anything, it'll come in its time, but hopefully it'll come sooner rather than later. But I just love talking to people and listening to the stories and listening to your podcast. And we can get strength from each other and empower each other. Everybody has something to say, everybody has a voice, and everybody has something to offer to someone else.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love it. I will definitely post your Facebook link in the information so people can find you. Thank you so much for being with me today and with our listeners. I appreciate you. And I'm going to keep my eyes out for that book because I feel like that's coming soon.
So thank you. Keep up the good work.
Thank you, Danielle. I appreciate you.